For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber, and today I'm joined by Andrew Mahler, host of American Made, right here on Ex America News on Saturdays at 5 p.m., and a writer for The New American, The Liberty Sentinel. I know you do a lot of work with the John Birch Society. Thank you for joining again tonight, Andrew.
Oh, thank you for having me, Michael. In the new late time slot, it feels like I'm on Johnny Carson, so it's an honor.
Yeah, we're actually back to our original time slot here. So back in the evenings, there's too much going on in the day and the morning, and I hate getting stories that are half cooked this way at the end of the day. It's kind of once most of the news is wrapped up, and we can do a better analysis of whatever fresh hell awaits us. But today we're actually going to start by doing our civic duty, and there's an all points bulletin right now for Jill Stein, if I can get my thing to cooperate here. All right, there we go. Judge issues arrest warrant for perennial Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein after she pulls a no-show in court over 2024 police assault charges. I actually kind of forgot about this. I vaguely remember hearing about this during the last presidential cycle, making some joke about how she was just searching for relevancy, and that's why she attacked the police officer. But now apparently she's on the run. I'm not really surprised. I'm sure things aren't going well for her or the Green Party, especially since the DSA is taking over the Democrats now and kind of beat her to the punch. So I don't know. If you see an old lady with white hair that smells like cat piss, make sure it's not Jill Stein. She's out there on the run right now.
Yeah, it's so funny. You told me this story, and I had completely forgotten about Jill Stein's existence. Last time I saw her, I thought of her. I saw a sticker on a stop sign in the Arnold, Missouri Walmart about 8 years ago. And that was the last time I ever, last and only ever time I thought of her. But stories like these really remind me about the joy of politics, that just when you think you forget about somebody, just when you feel like a story's over, they come right back. Back into the fold, back into the news cycle. So, Jill Stein, we're hunting her down. Of course, all the illegal immigrants, Dr. Anthony Fauci, all the criminals who have, corrupted our system of government, all the people enabled Biden, all of the various treasonous communists within our State Department and various government agencies. They're fine. But Jill Stein, everyone look for her, check her out. We need to get her, and we won't rest until we do. That's at least what we're told.
That's right. We need to get this woman off the street. She's a danger to society. I hope we see one of those Tweaker Geographic style arrest videos with her getting tased and then hauled off by the cops. That would just be perfect.
Maybe they can use the new Tase glove. Did you see the Tase glove?
Oh, yes,
on social media?
Yeah. I've seen. Now I imagine what they have is probably a lot nicer than the ones I'd seen years ago with these, cheap, Chinesium stun gun products. They sell at like gun and knife shows.
Right.
that they had. It had like cat ears on the back, and then a button you press, like a Spider-Man web slinger or something on your palm, and I guess you could like hit people and shock them. It's kind of a mall ninja weapon. I'm gonna hope whatever they're giving ICE is a lot more serious. I assume it is, but yeah, I'd love to get my hands on one.
Yeah, I'd love to put my hands on somebody who when I'm wearing one. So.
Yeah, maybe hopefully an Antifa member. Well, let's get right into it, because had a poll come out that's kind of been all over conservative media, so you guys have probably already seen this, but 58% of Democrats hold positive view of socialism over capitalism. And as you read a little deeper into the story, and I don't remember if this was on the Breitbart version of it or Gateway or where I saw this, but they mentioned that less than 20% of Democrats are still believe in capitalism or in favor of capitalism. So I guess there's about another 20% in the middle that are probably just confused. They don't know what they identify as yet, which I guess is par for the course for the Democrats. But the fact that nearly 60% of the left now, so we'll call it 30% of the voting population, has given up on freedom, on the fundamental values that have led to American greatness, and are now pushing for socialism. I mean, I think it's a sad state of where the country and the world is right now, that people are so miseducated that this is what they can believe will not necessarily bring them success, but I guess meet their minimal needs and would be better than the system we have now. I mean, there's obviously some problems with capitalism. There's going to be problems with any system. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But socialism, communism, it fails everywhere it's tried. They try to make excuses and prop it up, pretend, there's European countries that, they're social democracies, but they're not. They're all market economies still. They just tax the crap out of everyone and, steal their money and use it for socialized free Medicare or medical care. Which, is gradually turning into just the suicide program up in Canada and other places where, if you have something worse than a cold, they're just going to say, have you thought about killing yourself lately? And apparently over the weekend, I guess now they're trying to make it easier to harvest organs from people that sign up for a MAID, decide they want to check out. But I mean, this really is kind of, to me, it's just a disappointment. It just shows the sad state we're in and the problem with the left in America today.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the suicide note, it's a shame that they offer people that instead of the two life-saving substances of our time, coffee and nicotine.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I actually think these numbers are a lot higher. I think it's probably higher than 58% of Democrats that actually believe in socialism. Yeah. It's probably a definitional thing, right? Because I mean, calling Democrats socialists is kind of an oxymoron, right? And everyone's buying into this. And I really like Joe Rogan, right? I really like Joe. I think he's a good guy. I think he did a lot during COVID. I think his kind of view of history and questioning it and considering conspiracy and questioning narratives and, not trusting the government and a little bit more of that libertarian bent. I really respect that. But he has this show he does. It's kind of like a subsection of the Joe Rogan Experience. It's called Protect Our Parks. And he does it with Ari Shaffir and Shane Gillis and Mark Norman, some really funny guys. A little crude, very crude, but they are funny. And they're all kind of like libertarian right-wingers. But they released an episode the other day, and I was listening to it because it is interesting. These guys kind of represent the millennial, Gen X, like kind of white male, semi-conservative, moderate, tired of woke, get the government out of my life politics. They're kind of that sect, right? They're not hardcore right-wingers. They're not Christian. They're not anything like that, but maybe tangentially, but they're just kind of moderate people. And I'm listening to the podcast, and in it, Shane Gillis, who, cut his teeth on getting thrown out of SNL for making a joke that was about Korean people, really kind of embraced this kind of counterculture, cancel-proof style comedy. He says on the podcast, we really need free healthcare. And all the guys are like, yeah, we need free healthcare. And, they're talking about how if you take all the money that people spend on private insurance in this country and private healthcare, that costs more than it would for the government to offer free healthcare. And they're like, yeah, it's not communism. It's not socialism. And in the podcast, they're talking about how dumb communism and socialism is. Like they're repeatedly in the same episode. Now you have to admit it's a 4+ hour podcast because it's Joe Rogan. But, 2 hours ago, they're talking about how dumb communism and socialism is. And then they're like, yeah, but we need free healthcare. So these people don't understand that is socialism, right? Anytime you have the government controlling the means of production, controlling assets, controlling money, controlling industry, that is socialism, right? And frankly, since the end of the Civil War, we have lived under kind of a socialist style government because it's taking the Americans' taxpayer dollars at a federal level, subsidizing things, government programs, etc. So we already live in a socialist light, if you will. Welfare, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's socialism, guys. I mean, to be honest. So, what we're talking about now at this point is textbook hardcore economic communism. That is what it is, like 100%. That is what it is. So I think the Democrats are actually much higher than 58%. I think a lot of Republicans are kind of embracing this MAGA socialism, if you will, where it's, hey, you know what? We do need to keep Medicare. We do need to keep Social Security. We do need to keep the Federal Reserve. We do need to keep, all these government programs. Maybe we actually do need to have, some sort of fixed rent or fixed income or universal basic income or free healthcare. That is horrible. And this is where, and as I've said on the show, and I'll wrap up my answer here because I know I've been going long, is that fine. Republicans have to actually offer something substantive. Like, this is a real problem. Like, healthcare does cost too much. Like, there is an affordability crisis. And the Democrats' answer to that is, let's pounce on this and actually show our true colors, let the mask slip, as Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society, said. At the end of the struggle against these communists, they will run through the street naked. And when he said that, he didn't mean like literally naked, even though maybe they will. But he meant like ideologically, they would have nothing covering them. They would be completely exposed. And that's what this DSA communist pushes. And the Republicans need to, instead of saying, hey, don't vote for these people, they're crazy, they're communists, vote for us, we're just going to keep like the George Bush era neoconservatism alive. They need to say, hey, no, wait, don't vote for them and vote for us because we're going to do A, B, and C. And A, B, and C needs to be deporting 20 million illegals, ending foreign labor programs, ending the Federal Reserve, getting back to a constitutional sound currency, cutting government spending. If they do that and explain it, I think they have a shot at winning. But I do think the DSA style socialism will continue to progress. They'll continue to get success because these young people who went through the colleges, they went through the high schools, they bought the government propaganda, they're brainwashed. They're $500 to $1 million, dollars in debt, $500,000 to $1 million in debt. People say, that's crazy. That's not true. Look at how much they're paying on their Volkswagen Jetta. Look how much their college degree is. Look how much credit card debt they have. It wouldn't surprise me if they have that much. And somebody like Zoran Mamdani is a slick minority who comes in. He's on TikTok. He's got the great social media team. And he says, we're going to reach the hand down into the water and pull you guys out. And it doesn't matter if it's going to work or not. People are going to grab the lifeline.
Bingo. You're exactly right. And there's several things you said there that I want to highlight. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of people on the right, the people that are more the normies in the middle that don't really understand exactly what socialism is or the dangers of socialism are. They understand like our medical system is messed up right now, but there's easy solutions that can at least help get things on track. And then I think it would probably take a few rounds to actually get things under control again. But I think one of the biggest is allow insurance to be sold across state lines. It's something they've talked about before that will lower prices and eliminate a lot of these government requirements for what is required in major medical plans. This is something, I was in the insurance industry when Obamacare came in, and one of our most popular items that we sold. Now, to be clear, I was not on that side of the business. I was most of what I did were either help with large enrollments, or I developed a lot of their training materials and trained people in different offices. But one of the things that was most popular that we sold was this catastrophic only insurance. If you're under 40 and you don't have a pre-existing medical condition of any kind, there's nothing else that you're really concerned about, this was a great option. That it didn't cover anything until you reached medical bills of whatever amount you set. Usually it was like $10,000 or $20,000. Then it acted as like 80-20 coverage, or could cover 100% of your bills. But you could get that kind of insurance for, at the time, as little as $37 a month. And, most people can afford that if they can't afford, $500 a month for health insurance premiums for themselves.
Right.
So there are solutions like that would help bring costs way down. and stop making people's health insurance cover abortions and trans medication and gender affirming care and psychological care or other just ridiculous garbage that most people never want. You just end up paying it for other people. Let those people pay the increased costs that they want their psych visits covered or their hormone
Their
therapy.
abortion.
Yeah, their abortions or whatever else. They can pay an increased monthly premium and they can have that as part of their insurance plan. But yeah, I think a lot of it too is the brainwashing that people are not educated in our schools now, especially the government schools. They are indoctrinated, so they come out believing a bunch of absolute nonsense. They don't cover a lot of things in history. They don't cover the reality of communism and socialism around the world. Instead, they get the rewritten version with everything dumbed down or ignored or explained away, or oh, this is all because of the this dynamic, this power dynamic, or that power dynamic. Getting our schools back under control has to be one of our number one priorities. But yeah, I think a lot of these problems, there's simple solutions to. And, we're going to discuss more with AI later, too. But I think, if it weren't for AI, this universal basic income, you wouldn't have anybody on the right propping it up right now. But I think a lot of them do see the danger on the horizon of massive job losses from AI. And I think that's already starting now. We're going to cover a crazy story here by the end of the broadcast there. But it's something that's going to continue to happen. We're going to continue to see more robots. And as income falls, as we eliminate jobs from high income earners, that is going to start to affect a lot of the blue collar jobs. If all the, $250,000 and up programmers and people like that are out of work, they can't afford to hire somebody to paint their house or do anything else. So,
right.
But yeah, we've got to do a better job addressing these problems, and we got to actually do the things that, do the things you run on, do the things that you were elected to do. We need 20 to 40 million deportations, and we need them now. We need them last week. We have to start doing mass deportations. It can't just be the criminal illegal aliens. We've got to start really cracking down, and we've got to take the chips off the table, too, for these cowards that want to issue amnesty and other things. If they're already deported, we can't give them amnesty. So I think it's time to start targeting some of those areas and really bringing the hammer down and put some programs or systems in place to get Americans doing these jobs that apparently only illegals will do. That's going to mean wage adjustments and probably some other things, but I would much rather spend some money there at the federal level to bring things back into alignment, short-term spending to get Americans working in these jobs again, and then let the market take care of things again. But we need to, again, make sure everybody's playing by the rules and we're not using illegals to suppress wages or anything else. I mean, that's the big problem there. But yeah, we need a coherent message, and we need people that will actually articulate this and explain it to people, so that we're not getting our news from, the Shane, our political philosophy and our news from Shane Gillis and whoever else on the Joe Rogan show.
Let me add one more thing to this, because I just thought of this while you're talking, and I do think it is something of a hot take. I think a lot of this DSA socialism was greenlighted in December of 2024. Now, who remembers what happened in December 2024? Anybody in the chat raise their hand. It was a little Italian-American named Luigi Mangione who killed Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. And when that story broke, it was honestly jaw-dropping, Michael, the reaction.
Yep.
You had people say, hero, can't believe somebody didn't do this sooner. The women were like, man, he's, sexy, he's hot, we need to free him. He's my hero. Like this romanticizing of Luigi Mangione for killing a healthcare CEO. And it's obvious what Luigi Mangione's, or Mangione, or however you say his last name's, what his goal was. It was that he felt the healthcare system was too expensive, it was too chunky, and that we needed to do something different. So he became a vigilante, took matters into his own hands, and executed an innocent man who was the CEO of one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. And when I think when the Democrats saw that and they saw the reaction to it, they were like, oh, shoot, people are okay with blood running through the streets. And now you have Hassan Piker, #1 left-wing live streamer, saying capitalist blood needs to run in the street. So you've seen this kind of proof of concept for the left since December 2024. And of course, what has happened since then? We've had, assassination of Charlie Kirk. We've had all these, instances of political violence, and it's becoming, air quotes, politically acceptable on the fringe of these ideologies to act like this because of Luigi Mangione and the reaction he got online. where people were like, yeah, healthcare screwed, guy had it coming, blah, blah, blah. So I think we're headed into dark times unless we change this, because if the world will react to that murder, which was in cold blood and completely uncalled for, with praise, and not everyone did it, but it was a large enough group that it was like, shoot, like, yikes. That if that'll happen,
that there was no, the fact, sorry to interrupt, the fact that there was little to no condemnation from key Democrat officials on the left. Instead, we got excuses from them too.
Yeah, they weren't like, hey, he shouldn't have done this, screw that guy, horrible idea, blah, blah, blah. They were just like, yeah, you know what? We have a healthcare problem in this country. It's like, no, wait, hold on. This guy just killed a man in New York City in cold blood. It's like, this guy had a family. It's like, are you kidding me? He didn't like kill anybody or pull the trigger. Like, maybe his company's, crappy, and that should be a conversation, but did he deserve to die like a dog in the street? It's like, no, of course not. So once that happened in December 24, I think that really did kind of turn a corner in politics with at least the people who were watching and looking at the way the wind's blowing. They saw, wow, there is an appetite for this sort of radicalism because people are so done with, air quotes, capitalism. They're hungry for something else. And we need to be very weary of that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, that event too, it gave the Democrats, the left, the okay for a lot of the, frankly, terrorism that followed. Multiple attempts on Trump's life and other elected officials on the right trying to burn down the governor's house in Pennsylvania. I know he's a Democrat, but it was a deranged leftist that did it. I think it's already say Tesla terrorism, but a lot of these other attacks that have occurred since then, attacks on ICE agents, Antifa trying to, shot a cop in the neck in Dallas and wanted to detonate bombs over there. And the other Antifa wacko tried to shoot ICE agents, ended up unfortunately killing an illegal alien from Mexico, I think. I'm sorry if I have that wrong, but the guy shouldn't have been in our country illegally, but he didn't deserve to die for it. But you have these leftist wackaloons that they don't care. And again, their party seems to think that this is okay. It's acceptable. You never hear the left condemn it, and not in any serious fashion. Instead, they try to wash their hands of it and excuse themselves up and pretend it's okay because they know terrorism is one of their allies that they can use to leverage to win elections. That's why we had the Summer of Love. That was an ongoing terrorist attack from the left on people all over the country. And remember, depending on how you want to count it, somewhere between about 25 and 40 people lost their lives because of the George Floyd riots. No one died as a direct result of January 6th, except for the people the DC police murdered, Rosen Boyland and I can't believe I just forgot the other lady's name, Ashley Babbitt. I thought of her. Yeah, I could remember her mom's name, Mickey Whitecoff, and all of a sudden my brain quit working there for a second. But that's the problem, is the left gets behind, embraces this stuff. This is a tactic that they choose to utilize. And Hassan Piker, I wanted to comment on that real quick too. Yeah. Did you see CNN did a random act of journalism over the weekend and actually played some really devastating clips from Hassan Piker? I'm talking about how maybe we need to go back to when we had lynchings to get the black population under control. These other horrible things that he said. They ran a super clip of that. Now he's threatening to sue Scott Jennings and CNN and anybody that plays that clip they used.
Geez, well, good. I'm glad he got it because, this guy's a crazy kook. He is a Trotsky-style figure. This is a revolutionary in the truest sense of the phrase, radical left-wing lunatic, as Trump would say. Usually That's kind of annoying how often he says that, but this is an instance where it's very true. True radical left-wing lunatic, true agent provocateur, true Trotskyite-style communist. He is somebody to be concerned about, and he is mobilizing the youth, being used by the Democrats, going to Senate campaign rallies for senators who are the Democrat favorite to be in the United States upper, congressional chamber. This guy who's calling for blood in the streets, who electrocutes his dogs on live stream. This is the guy they are, actually wanting the endorsement and encouragement from. It's insane. It's insane. And that's the future, folks, unless we, fight back and actually get some common sense, conservatism, Americanism, perhaps better said, in our halls of government.
And I blame the Republicans for not deporting this guy. As we know for a fact that he's taken direct. Yeah, and Sneeko. We know for a fact this guy's taken money directly from the Cuban government and from China, from the CCP, to fund his operations here, and he didn't declare it properly or anything else. But some of this is straight up illegal. You know what? Strip this guy of his citizenship, send him back to Turkey. He can go to Barber College. He can do that. I hear that's popular there. And send him home. And you know what? We should probably, we're going to have to break up this family. We're going to have to leave his dog here because he electrocutes her. And, you know, the dog deserves better.
Yeah, it's a human rights issue. We're gonna have to. Sorry, Hassan. We're taking the dog. We're taking the dog. You don't get to have it anymore. Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, all the while the right's bickering amongst ourselves, and we're fighting about, you know, who killed Charlie Kirk, and are you on Team Tucker or Team Candace? Did Andrew Wilson do a better job than Candace Owens did in the debate? Do you like Ben Shapiro? Is Mark Levin a traitor? All that stuff. And it's like I have opinions on all of that, and I definitely do think some of that's worth talking about. But that's like the number one issue in right-wing politics right now is, are you on the side of, you know, gatekeeping classical conservatism, or are you on the side of, you know, the America First anti-Semitic radicals? It's like, it's crazy. Like Michael Knowles, who I've met and I've talked to him and I like him. I think he's a nice guy, but he was just at, I think it was Oxford, and he was doing a debate recently. This was like in the last 2 days. Some prestigious university in London. I can't remember which one it was, but he gave this speech on, did Trump betray conservatism? And I was like, ooh, interesting. You know, maybe Michael's going to offer us some interesting insights. So I click on it, and he's like, did Trump betray conservatism? He goes in this 10-minute rant about how conservatism is populism, and populism is always changing by the will of the people. And he said Calvin Coolidge betrayed the conservatives before him, and Ronald Reagan betrayed the conservatives before him, and Donald Trump betrayed the conservatives before him. And they did their own thing based on what the people wanted, and therefore they're always, you know, betraying conservatism. And it's like, okay, so the argument's no longer about principles. The argument's no longer about what's right. The argument, it's just like whatever the group wants, whatever, you know, the will of the electorate wants, that's what we're going to do. And I'm sure if you asked him that and presented that to him, he'd say no. But that was the argument he was essentially making. I don't know if he intended to or not. And then at the end, he kind of pivoted to the Buckleyism and the Buckleyites, who gate-kept the conservative movement. And he kind of, you know, talked about how that was a golden era and something we need to return to. And it's like, no, man, like we need to have principle-based Americanism. And every time we've tried to do that, there have been people like Buckley, like Shapiro, like Levin, who have kicked people like the John Birch Society out, or, you know, Pat Buchanan out, because we like said, hey, maybe there's some communists in the government. Maybe this is a conspiracy for global control. Maybe, you know, there is a uniparty. And, you know, that if you talk about that, you're crazy. But if you just keep betraying conservatism and doing whatever the, you know, population wants, that's true. That's true statesmanship. It's crazy.
Yep. No, I agree. And it's one of those things like, yeah. Now, what the people want specifically may change over a long time, but the values in the message need to stay consistent. There are going to be slight shifts. Like Buckley accomplished some good things early on. Definitely had his moments in some of the debates and all that he was famous for. But, you know, the real problem right now is sort of the opposite. It's Trump not doing what the people wanted, what the people voted for. That's right. This trickling down to Congress. And they've just totally abandoned the pledges they made in the last election. And God forbid you bring any of that up. But that's the problem. We have to stay on message. We have to at least push for the things that we voted for. We need mass deportations. We need the government cleaned up. We need arrests of all these deep state officials that are still in there pulling the strings of what's really going on. I don't care if it creates major problems and the Democrats freak out and they riot in the streets. You know, if we actually enforce the law, that would be good for us in the long run, because we'd be locking a lot of them up with felony charges, and then they couldn't vote in future elections. So, and again, I think that's how we need to look at things. We need to actually start fighting to win. That's our real problem, is we don't fight to win anymore. And we have this creeping socialism into the left, and it's going to become more and more appealing, because how do you run against Santa Claus? when you have people that are in the middle that are just saying, we're going to give you this, we're going to give, or hearing, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. You don't need to worry about this anymore. You don't need to worry about your medical bills. We're going to give you free medicine. We're going to give you a monthly stipend. We're going to call it universal basic income that can take care of your rent or your house payment. You're only going to have to work if you want to. It's very hard to compete against that because it's running against Santa Claus. But that isn't going to work. DSA steering committee member Cliff Connolly shares his hatred of the United States Constitution as the obstacle we finally have to get over to have a revolution. I mean, the DSA does not hide who they are until they're doing an interview on Fox or CNN or wherever that lady that just had to walk off was on. I can't remember which of the two it was. But yeah, they are open. Like if you want to see what they really think, you can watch it. It's up on their YouTube channel. Make no mistake, these are not soft socialists. These are not people that just want to. Oh, we just want a European style medical system, where you can have free health care and it won't bankrupt you if you need knee surgery. That's not really what they want. These are violent revolutionaries. And they're taking over the Democrat Party, and we really do need to pay attention to that because, unfortunately, I think such a large percentage of the Democrat Party is brainless, is just vote blue no matter who. That makes this a legitimate danger.
Yeah, and that's what they need. They need the Constitution to be eradicated because it really is the last bastion of freedom. Like, so for example, we don't have all of our constitutional, provisions and laws being applied. So like Article 1, Section 8, what Congress can and can't spend money on, not being applied. Article 3, the power of the judiciary, not being applied. All these different things. Article 1, Section 8, Clause, 11 with your congressional war powers, not being applied. All that stuff is being destroyed. But the few things at least we still kind of have tangentially are like the First Amendment, Second Amendment. You at least still have some hardcore protections there, at least an appeal to it. It's still, there's violations of it for sure, but it's being followed. The First and Second are, they're being followed more than, let's just say, the Congress's budget, for example.
Yes.
So you still have that, but they have to destroy the Constitution ultimately if they want to have this DSA style, revolution. Because could you truly have socialism and communism and a new world order, as Klaus Schwab said, if you have complete and utter free speech, right? You can't. Could you have a new world order communist state with, 10 million Americans having firearms still, or 50 million Americans having firearms, or 100 million Americans having firearms, or whatever? No, you can't, right? So you have to control the internet, you have to control the press, you have to control, the weapons, you have to disarm, you have to have surveillance. So they're building the infrastructure right now. But the Constitution is kind of like the last thing, right? Because if you take away the Constitution too early, you take away people's First and Second Amendment rights too early, they still have the guns, they still have access to some press, they still have methods of communication, they can still organize, they can still revolt, they can still push back, they can still embrace the spirit of 1776. But once you have the flock cameras installed, once you shift away completely from a fiat currency or a constitutional currency and go to a digital dollar, once you build the platform to debunk enough people, once you have enough AI data centers to replace human labor so that the robots are doing enough and people can't be self-sustaining, then you can kind of start taking away the Second Amendment, taking away the First Amendment, taking away these key constitutional liberties. And people are going to protest, sure. But if they do, we're going to debank them. We're going to, take away their central bank digital currency card. They're going to be shut down. They're not going to be able to buy and sell. They're not going to be able to buy formula for their infant. And we'll twist their arm. So that's what they're doing. They're building the infrastructure to basically corner us, to twist our arms so that when the time is right, they can flip the kill switch on the Constitution, get rid of it, turn us into some sort of a regional power, some sort of a, wheel in the cog of an international body. And then they will, hit the gas and go forward with their civil liberty destruction. But they have to get that infrastructure ready, because if it's not, and then they go after the Constitution too early, they're vulnerable because the people can still fight back. So this is the beginning of that.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. We've been watching them lay the foundation for this for years now. I mean, this is a plan over 100 years in the making. We're starting to see it come to its fruition, especially with the new digital controls. And make no mistake, like, they want somebody to finally be at their wits' end, fighting back against them, and to go on a shooting spree against federal agents. They want human sacrifices. At the end of the day, they know that is the only thing that will move their agenda forward, because in a sympathy story that their allies in the media can cover. And it will then it'll also be the excuse for new horrifying legislation that strips away more of your rights, whether that's free speech or not having to quarter foreign soldiers or soldiers in your household, which, again, at this point, I really think Alexa, I can make a pretty good case that is a foreign or that is a spy within your own household. Same with your cell phone or whatever else. But let's go back to the DSA here. DSA lawmaker declares stealing should not be illegal. Now, this fat ass says, if you're stealing food or deodorant or, socks, that those are human needs and people are only doing it because they have to, because our horrible capitalist system oppresses them and they just don't have any other options. Why is it always somebody that looks like they eat way too many Twinkies every day telling us that? But this is the Santa Claus approach, that you don't blame the individuals for the action. And there are cases like somebody's actually stealing food. Like I've heard stories before with, especially being in the staffing industry, where somebody got arrested for stealing food. They really were at their wits' end and starving. Where I have some sympathy for those people, but it's still a crime. You still have to pay it back, do some restitution, maybe some jail time. But somebody like that, I have some sympathy for. But that's not what we see when we see looting. It's big screens and Nikes and burning down stores just because it's something to do. These people, again, have lost their minds. But if you believe the propaganda, then you believe this nonsense. But again, it isn't the truth. If we actually had enforcement and we weren't placating people, telling them they're victims of oppression, we wouldn't have the riots, we wouldn't have the theft, we wouldn't have a lot of this to begin with. But they invite it in, they want more of it, they create the problem, and then they present themselves as the solution.
That's exactly right. And, it's a complete inversion of the biblical mandate, too. Like I was, speaking at my local John Birch Society chapter that I had up in my town in Florida on Thursday night. And I was talking about this very thing, that this is a spiritual war. And you can tell it's a spiritual war when they take like the most basic biblical, tenets, the most basic biblical pillars, and they just do the exact opposite. It's like, hey, there's only two genders. You can be any gender you want. Thou shalt not steal. You can steal. It's a human right. It's like they take the exact same opposite position. And it's like, okay, think with me logically here for a moment. If you have something as big as the Democrat Party and you have something as big as this, globalist, big government tent of politics, something that big, you think that their policies, and there's no conspiracy, right? So there's the Democrat Party, there's the globalists, there's, this big tent government policy and contingency. If they were not conspiring, if this was not a spiritual war, just statistically, reasonably, some of their policies would align with biblical principles, right? Some of their policies would be right. And yet every single policy the Democrats hold right now, every single platform coming out of the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, every single one of them are the exact opposite of what God's plan and design is laid out in the scriptures. So is that a conspiracy and intentional and by design, or is it just one of the greatest happenstances of all time? It's like, seriously, Joseph McCarthy had a great line where he said, if the United States government was incompetent, we would at least win every once in a while. It's like, and yet we just constantly lose. So it's like, when you look at the record, when's the last time the President of the United States, Congress, and the Supreme Court did something that was a massive win for America? It's like, when's the last time they did? That was a massive win. It's like, doesn't happen. So is it meant to be that way? Is that what they're intending to do? Or is it just incompetence? And I think when you look at it through a rational lens, you recognize this is a spiritual war. It is a conspiracy, and it is intentional. And that these people are being manipulated ultimately by Satan. Most of them don't know that, but that's what it is. And they're being, ushered into this channel of politics that inverts God's design. And this story is one of the most emblematic examples of it.
Yeah, well said. And you are exactly right. I like looking at it as like, it's not a coincidence. It's not an accident that they always line up against biblical principles, against constitutional principles. They are aligned with evil, even if they don't realize it. And that's part of why I don't really have any sympathy for them. There's a lot of people say, oh, we need to reach out to our neighbors. I don't really care about that. I'm not really concerned with reaching out across the aisle to evil people. I think they just need to be crushed. I think placating evil is part of why we're in this position now, that we haven't stomped this out earlier. And that's why we got to get serious about it. We have to actually deal with this threat. I don't care if they're born in the U.S. or they're born elsewhere. If they're a threat to our way of life and our biblical values, then they got to go. We can't keep playing this, dancing in circles with evil people that are just trying to manipulate and get their way through any means necessary. They've already proven they will embrace violence if they think it furthers their political agenda. After all, like I keep saying, there is no truth but power. It doesn't matter how they get that power. Hakeem Jeffries knows it. Democratic Socialists of America will be part of our broader caucus. No surprise there. Jeffries over the weekend also said that they need to pack the Supreme Court and get rid of the filibuster. And, that Electoral College, that's not looking so good either. And, Andy Bashir, unfortunately, agrees with them. It's time to abolish the Electoral College. These people make their goals very clear, and we know exactly how they'd use power if they were granted it again. Unfortunately, that's a real possibility. But I guess somebody needs to tell John Thune this, because he's still in denial about what the left will do. Oh, we have to preserve the filibuster. It's part of our tradition as Americans here in the Senate. I'm sick and tired of hearing that shit. This guy's got to go. It is time for Congress to take the power the American people have vested in them through their trust in their last couple elections and actually do the things that we voted for, even if they're hard and the media is going to write mean stories about you because of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's obvious they're building this broad coalition. And ultimately, those people are going to take over. There's no doubt about it. Because they have the youth. They have all of these different contingencies within it that have gone through these government schools, gone through the colleges. So that's what's going to happen. And the Republicans are going to have to decide, are we going to become the kind of counter to it, like the opposite? Or are we going to kind of modernize with them and be like the more reasonable version, but still move to the left? And that's the debate that's going on right now. Are we going to go back to neoconservatism? Are we going to embrace Americanism and nationalism? Are we going to, kind of become MAGA socialists? Like, what's it going to be? And I think you see a lot of various wings within the Republican Party that are trying to work that out. You have like people like Josh Hawley, who they're like, hey, we want big government, but we basically want it to be big government for our causes and our purposes. You have people like, Tucker Carlson, who are kind of going for a little bit more of a populist, harder to define centrist position of the Republican Party. You have kind of like the OG MAGA people, which I would consider myself a part of, that really want to get back to nationalism, that really want to get back to constitutionalism, really want to get back to Americanism. And then you kind of have the Marco Rubio, JD Vance wing, which is a little bit more towards the technocratic neoconservatism, where it's hey, instead of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, maybe it's Palantir and Andreessen Horowitz, but we're still going to be kind of neocons. And that's the struggle. And the right and our future politically is staked on how we handle this fork, because the path was what Trump laid out in 2016. That path is gone. It has not been fulfilled. So somebody's either going to have to come in and be more radical, which is what should happen, or they're going to be like, hey, you know what? That didn't work. We're going to be more centrist moderate, which is going to end up kind of complementing the DSA style, New Democrat Party. So lots of decisions to be had. But it does boil down to our money and what it's backed with the Federal Reserve and inflation, immigration. And it comes down to the war issue. It's those three things. And you can tell a lot by a Republican when you ask them, what does winning look like? And if winning looks like, just beating the Democratic Socialists, voting harder Republican, and the answer is not mass deportations, fixing the money, and ending the wars, know that's a Republican you want to stay away from.
And that's one of the real dangers that we're facing right now, that I think in the near future, we're going to have a major market correction in the stock market. There's the AI bubble is going to burst eventually. We are going to have more side effects from AI, more job losses, more businesses closing, huge shifts in the economy. Even if you're one of those people who thinks, it'll ultimately work out, industrial revolution, people always land on their feet, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I really do think this is different when you're using, because the point of AI is to replace the human in the component, in the equation. Whereas the Industrial Revolution made people a lot more efficient. It led to more specialization and specialty jobs, new knowledge there. But there were still human opportunities. The statistic they always give is the buggy whip one, that, average buggy whip manufacturer might have lost their job, but chances are if they went to go work at Ford building Model Ts, they got almost a tenfold pay increase year over year. And again, I understand that wasn't the true across the board. There's some industries that genuinely disappeared and there were not alternatives for, but by and large, it was an improvement. And over time, it was absolutely improvement to our way of life, the amount of wealth that people had, and even what they had access to. But, the left doesn't look at things that way. It's what benefits me right now. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people on the right that fall into that trap too. All right, we got one more on this, and we're going to shift topics a little bit. But Abdul Sayed to speak at conference calling for Muslim takeover of the U.S. So this isn't one of the ones he spoke at before, or something else that he did before. Like, do you know he was the highest? He killed almost a quarter of the dogs in the U.S. in 2015 that were in shelters. I guess he just really hates dogs. This guy did. Apparently, he just really hates dogs. No, I'll send you the article when we get off air.
If they were pit bulls, I'd be for it, but.
Well, they might have been. He is in Michigan, so he's near Detroit. But yeah, now he's going to speak at a conference calling for an Islamic takeover of the United States. This is your Senate candidate, Michigan. Look what you've gotten us into.
Yeah, well, first of all, the fit, awful. We're talking about a too tight of a Henley with like early 2000s Hollister, Abercrombie, and Fitch skinny jeans at a campaign event, dog. Like, that's crazy. So first thing, the fit.
He wants to look like the working man or working gay.
Yeah, I don't know what sort of working man would wear that, but yeah, if it doesn't rhyme with Bart Hart, they're not wearing it. But anyway, so that's where we're at. But yeah, this is the future too. When you have this interfaith coalition, you have people on the left like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden who say they're Catholic, right? And then you have people like AOC. Well, I guess I shouldn't say AOC. Let's stick to the ones we know: Rashid Tlaib, Zoran Mamdani. Ilhan Omar, who are like more of the Muslim bent. This guy, it's like, then you have like Jewish people within that. You have atheists within it. You have like nuns who are not actual nuns, but no religious affiliation, right? You have all these people coming together. That's kind of this interfaith coalition to push this big government, globalism, communism. And you have to ask yourself why. And I had somebody ask me this the other day. It's like, why in the world is George Soros, who's a Jew, funding DSAs and politicians, or not DSAs, sorry, DSA stuck on my mind. District attorneys. Yeah, district attorneys and candidates that are Muslim. Why is a prominent Jew like George Soros funding district attorneys and politicians who are Muslims? It's like, the answer is really simple. It's because George Soros, it's not that he likes Muslims or he likes jihad, but they all have a common enemy. The red, green, blue axis is real. It's communists, jihadists, and Democrats and globalists. And they are working together to destroy their common enemy, which is Christendom, which is Americanism, which has been inseparable historically with Christianity. That is the last domino they need to push over to take over the West. And if they can get clowns like this into office and build this interfaith coalition to take over Christianity and to take over, politically speaking, the country that way, then America will no longer cease to exist as we know it. It will just become a micro power instead of a major power. You'll see China and Russia continue to rise, and then you will be able to have this new world order they're seeking. But the only thing right now stopping the new world order is the rest of us. They know that if they have enough Americans against them, that America will never bow to this new world order globalism. They'll never bow to global communism. They won't do it. Because that's not what they want. They don't want nationalism, but with free healthcare. They don't want nationalism, but with welfare. They don't want nationalism, but with free abortions and transgender surgeries. They want an America that, forsakes its identity, that forsakes its birthright, and becomes a secular, pagan, leftist nation that then will succumb to the global new world order that they're trying to build. And as long as America stays a free and independent nation, that is the one thing that's stopping them. So anytime I see these Muslims rise to this high position of power, despite the Muslims like openly being for throwing transgender people off buildings in Iran, or Muslim people openly being against women having rights, it's like, that's not progressive. That's not leftist. That's not liberal in the modern context of the phrase. And yet they do it. And why? Because they are teaming up against us to take us down.
That's right, because there is no truth but power. And as we keep saying, what they're promising you on the left is going to keep shifting. It's going to be whatever they think is popular at the time, because they don't care about building a socialist utopia like all you retards, college graduates think. They're not going to go build the dream world of your professors. They're going to just accumulate power and then put their perpetual boot on the throat of anybody who got them there. Hold on 1 second. Looks like we lost Andrew. Let's see if he pops back on here in a second. But yeah, it's they could care less, and you're back. They could care less about any of that. Their only goal is to accumulate more power and dominate over you. Let's shift here to another pervert. HB. Our buddy Swalwell. FBI had evidence Swalwell got illegal donations from suspected Chinese spy Fang Fang. Bombshell memos show. Well, I'm going to correct the Liberty Daily here. That should say FBI hid evidence Swalwell got illegal donations, because they knew about this for years and did nothing. Why does this always happen? Every once in a while they trot out charges for some congressman when it becomes convenient for them. They'll finally go after somebody. But I mean, there's obviously some sort of a blackmail operation going on. This would be a great way to get Swalwell to vote however you wanted, though obviously he's a committed leftist. So I'm sure they already had his vote. By the way, did you know Fang Fang's dead? Died mysteriously in a plane crash in China. Who would have thought?
No. Oh, R.I.P. Yeah, that's tragic. Yeah, this is the tip of the iceberg, ladies and gentlemen. Swalwell, he's just the most egregious example, and this is what they call a limited hangout. And if you don't know what a limited hangout is, look it up. It's where the deep state or the intelligence agencies or whatever you want to call it, all the same things, they do a limited hangout. They give you a little bit of truth, right? That there's this much truth, and they give you this much. So you think, oh, look, there's transparency, there's exposure. Eric Swalwell is a communist spy, blah blah blah. He got money from the Reds, and it's like, and yet everyone else is too in some form or fashion. But they throw out the most egregious, the most ridiculous, the most easy target to let you think, oh, it's happening. They're exposing. There's transparency. If this stuff existed, it would happen and be exposed and brought to light, just like they did with Swalwell. No, it's a limited hangout, ladies and gentlemen. This is just the most egregious example.
Yep, they're giving you just a little piece to whet your appetite so they don't have to go into just how hellish things really are. But yeah, he's not the only pervert in Congress. We got another one. Health Ethics Committee investigating Democrat Rep Jimmy Gomez over sexual misconduct, including inappropriate sexual contact with a House staffer. Again, par for the course. But I think Swalwell is definitely the greater example here. Anyway, everybody, apparently this was like widely known. This guy was a pervert for years. He was cheating on his wife, banging Fang Fang, banging other probably Chinese spies. But he was a good little mouthpiece. He was an attack dog. He'd go out and do what they needed him to. But when people started putting all the pieces together and really looking into this guy as he's running for governor in California, then it was getting too hot, so they abandoned ship. And all of a sudden, all these allegations with threesomes, cheating on his wife, and running around with his buddy Ruben Gallego, or however you say it, down there, who also needs to be under investigation. But again, this is my thing. It's just like Ilhan Omar. Yeah, they're going to expose this stuff. And maybe every once in a while, when it's big financial stuff, one of these Democrat reps does go to jail or gets thrown out of Congress. But chances are all this stuff will just get swept under the rug again. Nothing will be done about it. And we're just going to be throwing up our hands in frustration once again. Like, I don't understand why our DOJ is so weak and pathetic that if you have examples of this kind of misconduct or activity going on and you've got enough that it's coming out publicly, you know what? Try this guy, get a warrant, arrest him. I am sick and tired of watching these people get away with this stuff constantly. If it's against the law for you and I, it's against the law for Congress. Except when it comes to insider trading and other carve-outs that they've given themselves, which all those need to go to. We're all supposed to have equal protection under the law. End of story.
Yeah, and this stuff happens all the time. You remember in 2023, I think it was, this is a story that should have changed the entire country, and yet people talked about it, and they were like, oh, terrible. And then they just moved on with their day at the water cooler. It was when Senator Ben Cardin, I think he's from Maryland, his two staffers filmed a gay porn video in one of the Senate briefing rooms. Anyone remember this? Is it just me?
Yep.
You remember that? Those two gay guys who made that video, they were staffers for this senator in Maryland. They literally made a gay porn video in a Senate hearing room, and it went all over the internet. And these guys got slapped on the wrist. I think they got fired, and they were like, oops, sorry, it won't happen again. It's like,
I don't think they even fired both of them. I think it was only one got fired.
yeah, well, even better. So it's for the point. It's like, it's insane. And this is just what we know about. It's just what we know about, ladies and gentlemen. The stuff that's happening beyond the scenes is probably 20 times worse than that. And the volume of it's probably 100 times more. And you look at just the pieces, like Madison Cawthorn blew the whistle on this, right? Yeah, anybody remember that? He went on, I think it was the Warrior Poet podcast with John Lovell, and he said, yeah, I got invited to this party, and it ended up being an orgy, and it was with all these Congress guys, and I was like, whoa, I didn't want to go to that. And then they were like in the headlines, oh, Madison Cawthorn admits to go and do an orgy, and it's like, whoa, he wasn't willingly going to it or knowingly. He was invited to a party. He went. He was a freshman congressman. He found out it was an orgy, and that's why he was telling the story, because he was trying to say, like, this is how crazy this stuff is. And then you have that gay guy from New York who got thrown in prison and Trump pardoned him, George Santos.
Santos.
He came out and he said, yeah, they're all sleeping with each other. So many gays in Congress. It's unbelievable. It's like, okay, so you got two sitting congressmen who have said, yeah, there's orgies, horrible gay stuff. You've got Epstein and that whole background. Then you've got the gay guys filming the porn video in the Senate hearing room, and nothing really happened at that. And it's like, okay, put all that together, use your imagination. It's way worse than you think it is. And it reminds me of this movie. Everyone should go watch it. It's called The Firm with Tom Cruise. The Firm.
Oh, yeah.
And in The Firm, it's the perfect example. This guy's a lawyer. He's a young, brilliant guy. He's, played by Tom Cruise. And he's like this super genius. And he gets this very prestigious job at this law firm. They give him a house. They give him a Mercedes. He's all happy. And then they send him on this business trip, and they get dirt on him. He does something, degenerate, and he's like embarrassed about it. He was maybe a little drunk, moves on with his life. He finds out the law firm later down the line is doing shady stuff for the mob. And he's like, whoa, I'm not doing that. And then boss comes in, manila envelope, whoosh, opens it up, boom, picture, him doing the thing. And they're like, yeah, you're going to work on this. You're going to do what we tell you to. That is a picture of what's going on here. That was Epstein. That's probably Diddy. That's all of Congress. It's that blackmail economy. And God only knows how bad it is.
Yeah, well, I wish one of these people in Congress would find their testicles while they were still there, start recording some of these conversations, and just release it to the public. I know they'd probably come after them legally, but I think you could go for jury nullification or something. Yeah, they'd probably just wind up dead. A quick side note before we move on to our last topic, because I know you got to go here. I think it was Senator Kennedy called what happened there on the floor of Congress that he was assuming the position of the American taxpayer. Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it.
Always count on him for something like that.
Yes, some Southern wisdom. All right. Well, if you guys weren't already terrified of AI, get ready to be even more terrified. Axios teams with OpenAI to fund local news powered by AI to train AI models. So now AI is going to be writing your local news too. I'm sure that'll be right in line with reality and what everybody thinks. But it gets even worse. AI boss terminates human worker at San Francisco boutique in first ever instance of AI human firing. So this is Andon Markets. And I guess this is an experimental business anyway. They're actually losing money right now, but it's a small cafe with locations in San Francisco and probably other places in Silicon Valley. But basically, they are trying to train an AI to take over management for small restaurants and convenience stores. So, why pay a manager to run your business, $120,000 a year if it's a franchise, when you could rent our AI for $40,000 a year? Well, now the AI is being trained to fire its human employees if they're violating anything in the handbook, which, by the way, was also written by the AI, or they're not meeting normal production goals, they're throwing away good products, they're doing whatever. That it is now training itself to fire the humans working for the robots.
And this is going to get so bad. And I'm so against this. I'm just done with the AI. It needs to stop. It's going to destroy humanity. I really mean that. And people say, well, if you worked with the telegram and then the phone came out, you didn't lose your job. You just, went over and worked on the telephones. It made more jobs. It was more prosperity. If you worked on the horse and buggy, you go and work for Ford at the Model Ts, and you make more money. It's capitalism. This isn't that. The telephone, the Ford Model T, these things didn't control humanity and think for them. These things weren't sentient. These things didn't have knowledge beyond human capacity. These things weren't going to replace 70% of our jobs. This is a completely and categorically different animal we're dealing with. This is, by the definition and words and predictions of its own masters and creators, these big tech oligarchs, is something that's going to change humanity, steal all of our jobs, and potentially lead to the end of civilization. And nobody's concerned. No one's asking any questions. Now it's controlling the news even more than it already is. Now it's firing human beings. Like, we need an AI moratorium. We need an AI, ban when it comes to this stuff. Like, I'm sorry if it's either AI ruling over us and humans becoming the little fat people in Wall-E, or somebody stepping up and stopping this. I'm going with the person who steps up and stops it, because I want a future by humans and for humans, not a future run by AI robots where you're going to have AI sex robots, the metaverse, AI, blue collar workers, AI white collar workers. It's all going to be AI. And then we're just going to sit back in our universal basic income in some big apartment with our meta goggles on, playing some video game for 12 hours a day. It's like, no. This has to stop. And I really think we need to start thinking seriously about a purge of this AI, a boycott of this AI. And it's like, okay, if you want to use it to, help you build a website, if you want to use it to, fix some cancer, if you want to use it for some constructive end, fine. But don't have it work at Chick-fil-A. Don't have it answering the phones. Don't have it fixing my sink. Don't have it writing my news. Don't have it making my movies. Don't have it steal what makes us human.
Well, I'll tell you one last depressing thing with AI before we wrap up here, because I'd like to get like an AI special lined up sometime in the next week or so, bring you and a couple other guests on that really have been covering this stuff closely. But this was a economist that was looking at the amount of money that's been sunk into AI and basically said that, you wouldn't invest this much money into something without also expecting, a profit, that a very substantial profit. And about the only way you're going to get that right now is if the AI took over the entire economy and all GDP. Otherwise, the amount of money going into it does not justify the return, which right now is less than zero, that you're getting on AI. But even in a fictitious world, if they were making some level of profit, it's nowhere near enough. Yeah, you need to take over and control the entire economy and all GDP, or you're not getting the return on investment that you would with most companies. But, hey, it could always be worse, right, Andrew?
Yeah, that's what they tell us. It can always be worse.
Yeah. Well, any words of wisdom or anything you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up here?
A lot of elections happening around the country. In Florida, where I live, we're having a big election tomorrow, August 18th. You need to get out and vote. Primaries are so important. Your votes is like 10 plus times more impactful than it is in a general election or a presidential election. Get out there and vote. Recognize that we are fighting a spiritual battle, that ultimately this is a battle against good and evil, dark versus light, righteousness versus unrighteousness. And you need to get your heart right with God. And if you haven't done that, pick up the Bible, read the New Testament. It's so true that the best thing you can do for yourself, your community, your family, generationally, is to give your life to Christ, repent of your sins, accept him as the only way to salvation. And once you do that, it changes your worldview. It changes the way you think about politics. It changes the way you think about AI, about government, about economics, about all these different things. And if everyone would do that and talk to others about it, I think we could have a awakening in this country. It's not going to happen through republicanism. It's not going to happen through the GOP. It's not going to happen through limited government, libertarianism. The only way we're truly going to change this country is by recognizing the nature of the battle, which is spiritual, getting our own hearts and souls right, with God, and encouraging other people to do the same. That's what started 1620 with the Pilgrims. That's what started 1776 with the Founders. And I think that's what's the only thing that's ultimately going to save this country. So get out and vote, get out and pray, show up, pray up, sit up, stand up, all the things, and don't give up the fight, because in the end, recognizing it's a spiritual battle, we, through our Lord, do win.
Well said. Yeah, if you're down there in Florida tomorrow, get out and make sure you vote for James Fishback. We need somebody that's in... Yeah. Well, we need somebody that actually represents our values and will put America first, and we'll put Florida first. You know, we need real change. We got to go out and show people like the endorsements aren't everything, that we are going to support candidates that actually seem like they want to get our agenda across the finish line, that aren't just saying what they need to say now to win an election, and then are going to stab us all in the back yet again. All right, Andrew, again, thank you for being here with us tonight. To our audience, thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. I won't be on tomorrow, but I'll be on at 8 o'clock on Behind Enemy Lines. I'll be back on Wednesday, and we'll see you all then.